Happy Monday.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Monday, August 3rd, first weekly GrowthLab jump of August. I'm here with Corey.
What's up?
Our my fearless co-captain on this. Dan Gertrudes is getting some much needed time up in a little staycation up in New Hampshire. So we're jumping in today, down a Dan. But looking forward to today. August, we're going to focus on a new topic in the weekly GL, and it's going to be all about risk. We're going to look at risk in August. Corey, I wanted to take a minute before we go down that hole and what the action items are, because there will be a number of action items for business owners as we really go from this survive mindset to the thriving, which we've kind of hit on, and probably people feel like I'm beating it against a wall, but I really do feel like we're at a pivotal kind of moment. At the moment, it might be a few weeks long here, but where people are really starting to understand, am I going to survive or not?
Yep.
And based on that, how am I going to thrive, or what is my mode going to be? That's a little bit of the framework that we've been looking at this over the last few weeks. And I think it's been helpful to my conversations with customers, prospects, about what does this look like, and how do you think about this? This is all planning, right? But how do you explain it in more words?
Yeah, what I find interesting is as we were putting this together, a lot of the topics that we've used that have led up to this point through April, May, June, July, they kind of all get culminated in this topic today. And managing the risk and who to talk to, who are people that you need to have on your side. It all comes full circle today. So.
It actually does, because when we get down to it, one of the action items for this week is going to be to call your banker. And what was one of the first action items back when we started this was talk to your banker.
Right when COVID hits, PPP came out. Same mantra holds true today. Talk to your banker. But we'll get into that more.
So I wanted to kind of talk through. For me, I was looking back at. I was going to go back a few weeks, look at the topics we hit on, and to bring the theme together. But I really ended up going back to the beginning, and I'm not going to bore you by going through every GrowthLab jump that we've done. I think we're on number 18. So we're getting a little rapport, at least internally here. But I did go back in April. April was all about the PPP. Obviously, it started with the PPP. It ended with the PPP, with a few things about planning scattered in there, because in our eyes, the monies that you were taking on from the PPP, it did come down to planning, cash planning, liquidity planning. What am I doing with my people? And it was, you remember, the audience, we pounded the pavement of don't just hire everybody back. That's not what might make sense for everything. It's being smart with it and planning. April started and ended with the PPP. May, we stuck with planning, got a little more structured. I think you were on here one of those weeks talking about 13-week cash flows. Yep. 6-month cash flow, 12-month cash flow. What do you think the world looks like after COVID? Making sure you make it through COVID, that survive mindset. But that was kind of May. In June, we took a little bit of a step back. We kept, PVP updates were in there every week. People had questions every week, but we really in June we focused more on the GrowthLab 4.
Trying to turn a corner a little bit, trying to turn the next page.
People were starting to realize, hey, here is my mode. For the next month, 2 months, PPP stuff settled down a little bit. We got the second tranche of it. The guidance came out in a bit more structured manner, and so people were kind of turning that corner a little bit. And you want to go through the GrowthLab 4?
Yeah. So number 1, GrowthLab 4, knowing where you make and lose money.
Number 2 is understanding your cash flow. 3 is about
marketing for profit.
And 4, one of my favorites, is making sure you incentivize your employees, pay for performance. So in June, we focused on those. We dove into each of them, kind of structured, understand them, execute, etc., measure and plan. And we carried that into July a little bit. The PPP Flex interspersed itself in there. Thankfully for small businesses who are trying to survive.
It gave them a second. What I think that kind of did was that gave them a second chance to plan. Right, a lot of businesses kind of wanted to put their head in the sand on that first tranche of the PPP. for better or for worse, right? Trying to avoid it. The PPP Flex kind of came back, gave that second breath for you to start planning. And I think that's weaves itself through all of
all this. One of the breath of fresh air for us was planning was kind of back in vogue again. And I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that to try to just say, GrowthLab is doing fantastic. We took our own challenges, but it was refreshing to see business owners who had not had time to focus on planning or disaster recovery or business continuity to really be like, oh, I understand why I need to spend 10% of my time working on the business, not in the business. I need to spend my time thinking about my plan for the next 12 months. Where do I see myself in 3 years? How do I get there? And based on that goal, what do I need to do in the next 12 months? And obviously, we've all had to do a lot more of that, and we've all had to be very agile in that aspect.
It's something that we preach and we talk about it often, but even for us internally, I mean, there's that one Sunday where we forced ourselves to come in and just plan ourselves, right? It's easy to get past that and just go by the day to day, go and just try and keep up through, especially through COVID. It's easy to get lost.
I don't think a week goes by where Dan and I don't talk about that Sunday where, the three of us and Mike were in here planning out what does COVID look like for us, or what could it look like for us?
De-risking, right? Coming up with a plan to identify the risks that we face, whether it's revenue, customers, operations, people, new people, managing remote teams, identifying those pain points or those risk points. And here we are.
Yeah. And so that was kind of April, May, June, July. We finished up the GrowthLab Forum, and then we took a kind of step back. And last week, the topic was, step back and think ahead.
Yep.
And it was that approach of, what is going to make me thrive? And what do I need to do today to be able to thrive? And the point was, what infrastructure do you need? Whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's operations, whether it's your finance, your accounting value stream. What pieces of your business have you not, let's say, future-proofed, or have you not brought into the into this century, or what is it that you need to invest in the business infrastructure? We all talk about roads and bridges as the infrastructure to move stuff so that we can do business, right? What is your business infrastructure that you can move stuff and do business? And so that was last week, and kind of summarized July a little bit in my mind. And so August, when we're looking forward to August, it's coming. The end of the year is getting closer. Summer is kind of coming to a wrap. I always push back against that. Summer goes into September for me. But August, we do want to focus on risk and identifying and managing risk. That does seem a little amorphous. It does seem a little like insurance or life management, but it's super important, and it doesn't have to be complicated.
So where should a business be, kind of to segue into that? It's like before you even get to beginning to identify the risks. So coming up with a plan for kind of second half or second 5 months of 2020. What is like a good metric, or where should businesses think about being today?
So I think, especially if you've been kind of on these since the beginning, we did talk about planning. We did, walk people through tools. We looked at spreadsheets. We did kind of de-risk some of this stuff because it was about putting a plan together. So I think by now you should have a plan. You should have a budget. As of we've passed mid-year. We're past the I'll call it some of the major unknowns of COVID. You should have a budget. You should have an adjusted budget. You should have a cash plan for the next 6 months. And if you're really good, you have a cash plan for 2021. What does your cash profile look like? And therefore, you need where and how much money you need to achieve whatever goals you have in the pipeline. Some people are covering that with their EIDL.
Sure.
Some people don't need to cover it. Some people are covering it with PPP loan still on the books. But I think that's kind of the baseline. Is you should have a budget, adjusted budget, and know your cash profile. That sets you up to be able to be agile, to be able to have those recurring. I was just on with a customer today, and their ownership team, and they're walking through their planning. The executive committee was walking through their process, right? And it's good. The owners are all asking questions, but in general, the team has planned, they have the tools in place that they can be, they can adjust, right? Nobody has a crystal ball to know what, December looks like.
Sure.
As we go into the new year. They were saying that everyone's going to have a huge party saying goodbye to the crap that was 2020.
Yeah.
I
think what that does, though, amongst all else, is you made a good point, right? No one has that crystal ball. No one knows. No one has that always right answer, right? But I think what this planning does, and kind of this risk mitigation, risk identification, what this does is at least helps you begin to talk out loud about it, helps to bring those risks out, right? No one foresaw, I don't think anyone foresaw a risk of having a pandemic in 2020, right? There's certain things that you can't protect yourself against, right? But on the flip side of that, what did we do and what have we been preaching to customers once COVID hit, right? Identify whether it's the key customers that you need to think through, whether it's key employee members that you have the potential of losing, right? It's not some secret formula that you're going to come up with that's going to open up Pandora's box for you, but it's going to have those conversations.
And it's putting pen to paper, right? Yep. That you can have all the plans in your head, but then it becomes tribal knowledge, and in the heat of the moment, who knows if you're going to remember your intricacies of your thought process, or what you're going to execute against,
sure.
Let alone being able to get a whole team behind you to execute against that. So I think it's putting pen to paper so that you can be agile, so that you can have, you can identify your risks, right? Whether it's like you're just saying, Corey, whether it's a big customer, key customer, key employee, right? You need to be able to make sure that you de-risk the business, de-risk that customer leaving, de-risk that employee leaving, de-risk, you name what's important for your business. That's where you focus your time and your energy and your plan to make sure that you can maximize it. But as I was kind of thinking about this, one thing that might drive it home is, a lot of, and what am I driving home is this idea of moving from the survive to thrive mindset. And maybe I should pull up the deck, just not that it adds a whole lot to our conversation, but gives the audience something you can take with you as well. But kind of walk through that as we go from the survive to thrive mindset. There's a lot of businesses that are going to survive because there has been a lot of money pumped in. The PPP money was survival money. I hope and trust that some of the next monies that are going to be pumped in are going to be monies that help companies that are much more forward-looking, much more focused on the plan. And what am I going to do for my employees, my customers, bringing things back to where they were. 80%, let's just call it 80% of businesses are going to survive.
Yep.
So there will be a lot that are still standing. But it's of those, there's going to be a subset, whether that's 50, 30, 20, that are going to really thrive. And that's where we want our customers, our people on our weekly jump to really be able to say they've got the win. And that's where the risk mitigation, risk management comes in.
And I would say, I don't think you meant to say this literally, but 80% of businesses will survive, which is actually, I think, in my opinion, an astronomically high number, right?
Yeah.
If you look back at 2008, how many small businesses did not make it, or businesses in general. I think it's because of the fact that we've had a lot of assistance.
Definitely.
PPP, EIDL, all these things that we've talked about, right? Which has helped support us. But now I think turning that chapter in terms of like risk mitigation, one of the risks is that there is no more free money, right? You've gotten everything that's been put out there. How do you deal with a cash profile that has you burning cash for the next 3 months, right? That's something that we need to address. So I think kind of going down some of the, as you see in the PowerPoint, and if you're watching us on live, we'll have a link to this in the description. But some of the kind of types of risk to manage.
Yeah, there's lots of risk out there, and there's lots of volatility. And you can. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but as I was just putting this together, you got cash risk, you got your business model risk, you got political risk. I mean, this is an election year. Do we need to say more? There's social risk, whether that's masks, no masks.
Yep.
How do I manage groups of people? Does my business deal with groups of people? There's tax risk. There's just so much that's going on that business owners, your head can explode trying to manage all of these things. I mean, some people are in real estate. I mean, CRE is corporate real estate is going to look a lot different, to say the least. So lots of risk, right? Right now the opportunity risk reward equation is just super critical, and every business owner needs to own that on their own. It's not about having an insurance policy. It's about knowing what your plan is, knowing if you need to adjust, pivot, or basically transition your business. Something we talked about a few weeks ago. Should take a look back 2 weeks, I believe it is. But what is your thrive mode, right? Is it that you need to adjust your business? Do you really need to pivot your entire business or business model?
Sure.
Or do you need to transition? And once you know that, you can then know the risks to your plan, right? And so it isn't like rocket science, but it does take some thought to write down a plan and say on that plan, what are my risks? Just write them down. What are my risks?
And then on the flip side of that, so you have your risks, and then what do you do to kind of identify how to react to them?
Risks and countermeasures, right? And so if I see that risk happening, if that customer looks a little dissatisfied, what am I going to do? If that employee looks a little dissatisfied, what am I going to do? Am I going to try to retain them? Am I going to try to replace them? Am I going to try to push it faster in one direction or the other?
I love that exercise, because what I think it makes you do is it not only, as you said, put pencil to paper, pen to paper, talk about it, right? Have the conversations around it. But I think what it allows you to do is next, if you do actually come across that risk, and that fear or that risk does actually kind of come to fruition, it allows you to actually know the exact step you're going to take to mitigate that much quicker than if you were kind of having to play ball on the spot.
One of the fun moments that puts a smile on our face from months ago was when we sent out one of the follow-ups to one of these weekly jumps or the weekly GL, where we were talking about putting a plan in place and executing. Someone wrote us, and that was on our list, that had subscribed to our email list, but I have no idea who they were, down in North Carolina, I believe it was, and said, I think this is like the voice of God for me. And he's like, this is the voice of God for me. I read your email. I went at 11:30, went home for lunch, family business, told my wife we're executing on our crisis plan. And I did it, and it's the best move. I did that yesterday, and it's the best move I've made in the last 3 months. Now, not something he wanted to do, not good news, but it was nice to see somebody like respond to all that's going on. But it does bring it a bit full circle, because the cash is king, and especially in an environment like we're in now, where there's a lot of volatility, a lot of risk. Being able to be agile as a business, with cash in particular, whether that's to invest in your business, whether that's to do an acqui-hire, do an acquisition, because I think there will be a lot more businesses that are looking to transition out of what they've been doing, because they can't survive. So cash is king. And Dan, if you're listening, or if you listen, I was on with a customer earlier today, Corey, and they were like, I'm going to just channel my inner Dan here for a moment. And he said, Dan would say, if he was here, he would say, cash is king. And then cash is king. And in this case, it gets us back to our action item for this week, which was the first action item on weekly, the GrowthLab jump, was call your banker. And it's not because you need something today. This is like networking. And if you're a good networker, you pay into the system, call it pay into the system, you participate in the system, not because you need something out of it. It's because you know that
you might one day
need something out of it, and you can offer things to the network. Same way, call your banker, not because you need something today, because we want to build that relationship. And the other piece of this is that they're going to be extremely busy in the next 3 months, and they're not going to be extremely busy dealing with the businesses that are thriving. They're going to be extremely busy with the special assets.
No, I think something that came through the PPP stuff that we've heard a lot of feedback on, we've witnessed a lot. We did a podcast on it one time. A lot of, sometimes for better or for worse, that PPP those PPP funds were handled in a way that prioritized certain relationships, right? And that's not the way it should have been. However, it was a relationship focus, right?
Go back 4 or 5 weeks to your and Dan's weekly GL about the PPP monies. The SBA released the entirety of any loan over 150,000. Gave you all the details of their lender, when they got the loan, all of that jazz, and we did an analysis of it. Kind of showed where the big banks came down versus the smaller banks, which is kind of what you're alluding to, just to cut to the chase, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The point is, have a relationship with them. Build a relationship more than just, hey, I'm a customer of your bank, right? Because the relationship will go a long way, right? A lot of bankers will tell you it's much more about the story, about the business, rather than just, hey, I have an account here and I have this type of business, right? So build that relationship with them above all else.
A few other kind of thoughts in there. A lot of small business owners are in the same bucket. Think about refinancing, whether that's your corporate real estate, whether that's your own personal home, to give you personally some extra cash agility. Think about putting more of your eggs in one banker's basket to get them to pay attention to you more, whether that's refinancing your mortgage with the same banker you do bank with business.
Sure.
Just think about these things, because that's how they're looking at you as a customer, and you want to try and get them to focus on your account. And your account is not just the business. Your account is not just your home, personal stuff. It's they view you as the manager of all of those assets, really, and that's that can build the relationship.
Cool. So I think the only thing I made note of that I wanted to kind of recap on is where you should be up until this point. So if you're just catching us now, just joined live or just joined the webinar, I think kind of to recap, where should we be now?
Yeah, where should businesses be now in the cycle of COVID?
So I think to recap, you should have an adjusted budget, rest of 2020 budget. If not, begin thinking about 2021. You should have a cash flow plan, right? Whether that's 13-week, whether that's 5-month, whether that's 12-month, whatever it is, have a cash flow plan to identify any key hotspots that you need to address.
And then use that plan to identify and write down the risks to that plan, and write down countermeasures to that plan. And the things that the resources I put up on the screen, 10 steps to business modeling, 10 steps to 13-week cash flow. The first one is more, that might get your juices flowing in terms of either, how do I need to adjust, pivot my business, or, what are my risks to my business over the next few months, and or countermeasures to address those risks. And then the second one, the 10-step approach to 13-week cash flow, much more tactical. You all have seen that one before, but just bringing that back to the 4, if that's something you need to put in place, take a look at that tool. Cool. Thanks, Corey, for jumping in. And stay tuned for more in August. I don't have a good acronym for it, but August is Risk Management Month here at GrowthLab Jump. Thanks. Cool.
Thanks, everyone.